special occasion here. We're honored at City Lights to have Faustine and Marie. Faustine, of course, is Victoria Casey-McDonald's daughter. And she and Marie worked to get several of Victoria's books back in print. And I think maybe she'll tell us a little bit about the project to reprint the original book too.
Yeah.
But we're going to start, I believe, with a prayer. Sir, would you lead us in that?
And would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
That's all right.
This is Bishop.
I'm Bishop Adam West from Calzona Tabernacle. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for this day that we never have seen before, but for this special occasion, Lord. Let us show our love towards the family of Victoria McDonald. Oh God, we thank you, we praise you, and we worship you in spirit and in truth. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Marie?
Everybody's heart is overflowing, not just mine. And y'all look good. Since it says everything that needs to be said, I'm literally going to read the foreword that I wrote in the republished book. And we'll talk a little bit after I read it in its entirety, because it tells us everything we know about this incredible woman and a lot about this community that many of you grew up in and some of us came to call our second home. But I also want to start with just an acknowledgement before I begin to say that we have Ms. Ammons, who was the publisher of the original book, and several books by Victoria. And I just wanted her to acknowledge the fact that she traveled from South Carolina to be with us today. But we'll talk some more about that. I'm gonna try to read fast and I'll try not to cry. Just Over the Hill, Black Appalachians in Jackson County, Western North Carolina by Victoria Casey-McDonald could be recounted as part of the Liar's Bench, a casual storytelling tradition among Southern men sitting in the public square and at barbershops. Folk tales of a bygone era for entertainment purposes only. This collection of Appalachian narratives simultaneously steps into the circle of griots throughout the African diaspora. Although Victoria never lived outside of Jackson County for an extended amount of time, her appetite for knowledge and her ancestral pride granted her regional and global citizenship simultaneously. With this reissued edition, Just Over the Hill reemerges in the aftermath of an unprecedented year. A decade after its original publication in 2011, the nation continues to face the turmoil of a devastating global pandemic, a sobering racial reckoning, and contentious political conflict. Looking back, the fatal shooting of a 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in 2012 was an ominous foreshadowing. The handling of that tragic incident in Sanford, Florida, combined with the subsequent acquittal of gunman George Zimmerman, sparked an international debate across all media regarding racial profiling in the criminal justice system in the United States. I met Victoria in my role as a newly minted visiting faculty member at Western Carolina University. Our paths crossed as participants in numerous rural activist causes, including the historic campaign for President Barack Obama in 2018. In hardly any time at all, Victoria became my personal community ambassador, as she had been for many people. These points of reference set the tone for my contemplation about this reissue. The stories here do not possess the lexicon of the Black Lives Matter movement, but they proclaim and confirm the message. The immeasurable value of this book lies in the mysteries between the lines of text and the patterns within its retelling. Instead of a review of Just Over the Hill, I am compelled to render a portrait of my dear friend and venerated elder. Victoria Casey-McDonald passed away on Sunday, August the 17th, 2014. At her homegoing service, a diverse assembly of individuals from every walk of life shared their stories about a phenomenal woman who was, in no particular order, a teacher, a preacher, singer, artist, community activist, and author. How many of you were there? Most of you. As a Black woman born and raised in the shadow of the mountains of Western North Carolina during the era of racial segregation, she moved in a community within a community. Her lived experience defied category. Affirmatively, Victoria was a collector of stories. And with the fulfillment of her dream of the published books that she created, a grassroots historian was born, and Victoria's contributions made her a regional treasure. Hence, she became the subject of a wide range of articles, and I could have gone on and on and on, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead. But invisibility is a theme by default whenever Black Appalachians are discussed. These stories are more accurately unrecognized or suppressed by mainstream, reluctant to embrace the nuance or the complexity of the American experience. So I don't like that term, invisible. I don't even like the term making the invisible visible. We know who we are. Before the Civil War, Black people made up as much as 15% of the population in rural Southern Appalachia. Currently, that number has dropped, and part of it is because of out-migration fueled by economic insecurity and COVID and various things that we know about. But in spite of these massive challenges, often isolated and racially segregated communities provide rich, albeit unwritten stories of resilience and achievement. I often like to use the term small numbers, huge impact. And I could go on about William Turner and the book Black in Appalachia in 1985, or Frank X. Walker inventing the word Affrilachian in 1991. And I could go on and say Jeff Biggers wrote this incredible book, a white writer, in 2005 called The United States of Appalachia, which I found out about. But I'll just name some of the things that are important to know. Biggers stated that Appalachia has produced some of the most important American thinkers and creators of African descent, including Carter G. Woodson, the founder of the official celebration of Black history, Booker T. Washington, Bessie Smith, Nina Simone, Bill Withers, Nikki Giovanni, Henry Louis Gates, just to name a few, if you didn't know them already. So it's a challenge to articulate Victoria's impact, but she was aware of those same type of people in this small community where we stand. Born in 1943 in Peters Bluff, a Black community in Cullowhee, North Carolina, she was one of 10 children of the late Estes and Dorset Casey. In her early years, Victoria worked at the telephone company. Later in life, she earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Western and raised her son Crichton, did I do it right? Creighton, her daughter Faustine, better known as Tina, and we have with us her grandson today, Victor. That didn't make it into the book because he was a glimmer in his eye at the time that this was written. Walk around on Casey Land, but we'll talk about that later. She began her teaching career at the National Teachers Corps Log Cabin School, then gave 30 years of service in the Jackson County system. After retirement, she returned as a substitute teacher, determined not to lose touch with the next generation. Before the term multicultural was a word, Victoria incorporated Black, Indigenous voices into her classroom. Yet another aspect of her interaction with youth was her love affair with sports. As a coach, she was a fierce competitor. Her goal was to instill character and self-esteem, not simply put points on the scoreboard. She was a devoted member of God's Holy Tabernacle of Sylva. And as an ordained minister, her distinctive preaching style resonated as a combination of teaching the word and sermons and music. She played a vital role as an advocate and organizer, holding members in leadership positions in organizations including Bridging Jackson County Communities, Catch the Spirit of Appalachia, the Jackson County Arts Council, One Dozen Who Care, and she was a charter member of the Jackson County chapter of the NAACP. Wake him up. When AT&T announced this annual call, I'm almost done with, this is her life. I'm just touching high points. For the Heritage Calendar celebrating the North Carolina African American experience, I nominated Victoria for a posthumous inclusion. She was selected for the class of 2017, which represented individuals from a wide range of fields, including education, architecture, philanthropy, local government, athletics, and media. And I could go on and on. And I haven't even in this essay talked about the fact that she was an incredible artist as well. Just had her work in an exhibition called Jagged Path that will continue to travel. It was originally at the Blowing Rock Museum. Casey-McDonald's passionate and unwavering commitment to the work of documenting the diversity of Appalachia remains through her quartet of published books that you can buy a copy of from City Lights bookstores. Support independent booksellers. And that includes 2 novels. These are all, whether they're documentary books, or creative nonfiction, she's talking about real people who existed on this land. And the reissue of Just Over the Hill was made possible by a Thomas W. Ross funding publishing grant from the University of North Carolina Press, Chapel Hill. And we have Heidi here, who helped shepherd this to happen through the auspices of Western Carolina University Hunter Library. And before I say my final statement, I also want to acknowledge that we have an elected official present who was there when we gave city proclamations and county proclamations to honor Victoria Casey-McDonald Day, which we will remember forever, tomorrow being the day, and we have the proclamations that you can see here. So would you like to identify yourself?
Hi, my name is Commissioner Natalie Newman for the Town of Sylva, and I'm very honored to be here today, and it was an honor to enact that proclamation as well.
Well, one last thing, and we have some other comments to make, but I think this is important. And this is in the foreword. An African proverb states, I knew it was going to happen. Somebody make me laugh. When an elder dies, a library burns to the ground. Yet, Victoria's work does not rest in the embers. The legacy remains. Thank you. Everything else, just don't cuss. Okay? So, I've done my part, and I can return to the audience, and fun continues.
You've done the most amazing part of this. I'm just thankful to be able to actually do this on her birthday weekend, her 80th birthday weekend. She would be 80 tomorrow. Me and Marie I remember meeting Marie, and I'm always very on the defensive. My mom was everything. So when people were around her that I didn't know or associate with, I was always very, what were their intentions with my mom? You could, if she was alive today, if she was holding a baby, I was real upset. I'm the baby. I'm 35, but I'm the baby. But that was just me. I was just protective that way. But I remember meeting Marie, and then as I've gotten to know her, and then after Mom passed, I really got to know her. And I'm so thankful for her, because she was able to help me keep Mother's legacy alive. Help me figure out how to document the things that I didn't have a start or way to go, or what resources to use. She helped me, and I'm so thankful for that, where I had City Lights telling me that we need more books. We need this book. Can you republish it? We have a book that Mom was trying to finish when she passed that I was able to finish, but I wouldn't have been able to do any of those things. For one, I want to thank just the community, because I know about entrepreneurship, yes, but when it comes to the world of publishing books and who the connections to and what they've got to do those things, or even I know how to research history and gather that history, because I did that my entire life with Mom. That is my childhood, was gathering the history that's in these books, and was helping her gather that history. I know about that, but I had no idea how to put it together. And without Marie, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Marie, and I'm so thankful for you for that.
I'm honored to.
And it's been a pleasure to, and Heidi, they spoke a piece about Heidi, but honestly, Just Over the Hill would not be published again without her.
Everybody clap.
At all, because when we got the grant, I'm pretty sure I just found out I was pregnant. I was doing my roles with my company and everything else, and she took the reins and was able to do everything that I could and had no idea about, from copyrights to a picture. Hey Tina, do you know about this picture? I don't know where she got it. She probably got it off a copy paste from WordPress, because that was my mom. Like, we're talking about research when you made a book before. It wasn't like you had like InDesign, which some people may know, to create this book. It was just WordPress. That's what Mom did. I remember coming in with Mom and Tina, fix this. This doesn't look right. The computer's not working right. Really wasn't the computer. It was really the operator. But I fixed it nonetheless. So that's how all her books came about. It was her continuously just doing research and writing. It was like her writing an essay, and then she would go and correct. And as the years went on, it got better, of course, because she had her first publishing that you helped publish. And I'm really, really super, super thankful that she did that. I remember when it was getting published, she's like, Tina, one of my books are getting published. The Pictorial History of African Americans in Jackson County, which I have to republish that one as well. That's one of the two that the most requested from City Lights and other bookstores around. And I'm in the process of doing that to get that book, because it's something that kids can see. It's like you said, it's pictorial history. So you really get to see those pictures that were maybe lost through fire or family history that unfortunately my generation, I'll take the blame for. We took for granted. We let those pictures slip to the side or didn't do what we need to. Some millennials are great. I'm one of them. I'm decent at it. Marcus is really good with history. But most of the millennials in the African American community that came from here, we played ball, we studied, we let Mom take the care of the history. That's just honest truth about it. Or, Pastor West, y'all told us stories, and we would hear the verbal stories, but we didn't truly understand it until we got mid-20s, when we really started to lose some of our elders and weren't hearing those stories anymore. And that's what my mother's books capture. Just Over the Hills captures those stories that would have been lost, of all the African American families in Western North Carolina that helped build the community that you see now. Places you'll go by and you didn't even realize that your family, the West family helped build, Bryson's, Rogersville, the Caseys, all these people built the community, but you have no idea they were built there. We're even here. And that's what it's about, celebrating today as well as all these things. It's not about just celebrating my mother. It's about celebrating the community, the people that are here right now. It's not about celebrating just her. We're so thankful for her, but it's what she filtered into the community and what the community gave her that we're able to be here today. And it's stories. So just to let you guys know, today it's not about, okay, Marie spoke, I'm speaking. One of my, I actually looked up to her. I never really told her. I looked up to her when I was a kid. My mom coached her, Nicole, she's gonna come speak. And I used to follow her around, used to bug her. I mean, I bugged the mess out of my mom's basketball teams. If they can probably tell you, I was an annoying little kid, because I was there. I was stuck there. Mom's a single mom, so she was there. But Nicole, I looked up to her and watched her play, and then later on, I actually got to coach with her and coach her kids. So it was kind of a full circle thing, and Nicole's actually a teacher now, and she's gonna come speak, and it's about the story she's gonna speak, and I'm recording today for you guys to come tell stories after we've got Flora and Pastor Bishop West. After us four speak, it's open to you guys to tell those stories, because I want that history to stay alive, because every day I hear new stories of what my mom did or helped with that I had no clue about, and it's hard keeping that without documentation, some documentation. And video documentation is kind of one of the easiest things now, even though they say the attention span of a person's what, like 20 seconds, you know, flipping TikTok, whatever it may be. But that's why I'm recording today. So after Nicole speaks and Bishop West speak, it's open to you guys to tell the stories of how you knew Mom, of what she contributed, or how what you took from a book. All those things are today. That's what it's here for. And to all the elders that are here that are amazing, that I didn't even think were elders. Mary Sue, I never thought of you as an elder because you were just my cousin. But no, I mean, Wanda, I didn't think of them as elders. Y'all were my cousins, my older cousins that just told me what to do. And Ronnie, she's technically an elder. Cousin Ronnie. You are an elder. But you know people that I don't know. So you can tell stories of Grandma and Grandpa that I can't tell. Like I'll get a story told about my Uncle Clifford that beat the fire truck to the fire call on his horse. So I'm here thinking as a kid, no, wait a minute. How did a grown man on a horse, now's your kid, beat a fire truck? It can go 60, 70, 80. How did he beat it? He went through the woods. That's just the honest truth of it. He went through the woods to get to that fire call. But I wouldn't know that story if I hadn't been around my elders to hear that story. And so that's what we're here today to do, is to tell those stories so they keep them alive. Nicole. This is Nicole Reaper, and I never told her, but I did look up to her when I was a kid playing ball. She was one of them that my mom coached. She became a teacher, and she's been one of the awesome impact in the community. If anybody, she told me, she was like, "Me, you want me to speak?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You have impacted the community more than us, just like Mom did." And I hope you take that to heart.
I'm already gonna cry, and I can verify Tina's the baby. She's been the baby a long time.
I can't confirm or deny. All right, I'm staying that way.
Okay, just so y'all know, I'm a crier, so I'm probably gonna cry like a lot. But I'm so honored to be here. And I got the message from Tina asking me to be a part of today. I didn't even hesitate to say yes. And thank you to Tina, because she shared her mother's love with a lot of us, a lot of students, a lot of players. So it means a lot to me here. I loved school. I was a super teacher's pet. Every year I knew I was a teacher's pet. And that was until I met Miss McDonald. Very quickly I realized it was going to take more than answering all her questions and volunteering to run stuff to the office for her. She was going to require a lot out of me. And I'd like to mention right here, I know for sure I was her favorite. Just so, see, she never had to say it, I just knew. But every single student in my class, like, we never knew any of us were any different than the others. We were all treated the same way. It didn't matter who you were, who your parents were. If the last teacher didn't like you, if you came from a good home or a bad home, she required your very best. She never cut any of us any slack in the classroom or on the basketball court. To her, every single day was a new opportunity. It was a chance to change your life, to make something better. One of my very favorite memories is playing in the championship games my 7th grade year, and I'm not an elder. All year long I battled with another girl. She and I went back and forth all year fighting for that starting spot. We were a stacked team. We were so good that year. And me and this girl, and she was bigger than me and stronger than me, and she was good. And the night of the championship game, like it was the first time any of us had ever seen anything like it. Like they turned the lights off and they lowered this light so you could run out. It was super fancy. And the boys played first for whatever reason that night. And then it was our turn. And she said, Cole, you're starting tonight. I could have died right there and like went on to heaven like the happiest girl in the world. and we went on to win that night. And all night I kept thinking, why did she pick me? That girl started all year. Why did she pick me? And I just never figured out why she chose me until a couple of years later. I found myself really struggling my freshman basketball year here at the high school. And I reached out to Miss McDonald via a letter. My sister's a few grades below me, so I sent it to school with her to tell Miss McDonald I needed her at my games because I was struggling. I needed her. So it was like my third or fourth game of the season, and she showed up to watch my game. And after the game, she didn't pet me or make excuses or tell me what I wanted to hear. She said, these other girls might be bigger than you or faster than you or shoot better, but they should never outwork you. I found out why I started the championship game that same breath. She said, that night you started was because you outworked everyone in practice, and I knew nobody on the team was going to beat you down the floor to a ball. I needed the player who was going to work. And for nearly 30 years now, that has been the secret to my success and my motivation. And the one thing that I try to pass on to all the girls that I coach, nobody should ever outwork you. Miss McDonald didn't do anything fancy in the classroom or have a book full of well-designed basketball plays. But what she did have was a big heart and a desire to serve her community. The way she loved us as students and players, the way she connected to people, and the way she broke down so many barriers is what I strive to be as an educator and as a coach. My whole life, she showed up for me. My high school graduation, my wedding, and the birth of my triplets. Maybe one day I will get to tell her what she's meant to me and what an impact she continued to have on my life decades after we first met. And I'll probably double check to make sure I was her favorite. Miss McDonald was one of a kind, but to love and serve others as she did is something we should all strive to do. Thank you.
Well, Nicole's amazing. As you can hear, she played ball. Nicole could play. And that was one of my idols. Growing up, watching the play ball. If I was going to be like anybody, I was going to be like her. Because I wasn't always this tall either, by the way. Because of my sickle cell, you actually grow, your growth spurt doesn't hit till you're about 16, 17, 18. So you grow at a shorter. So I was probably about this high till, God, junior year in high school. So the scrappiest player on the floor, I didn't have to be the best, like Nicole said. But you don't leave it all on the court. And that's what Mom did. She made me leave it all on the court. And I always did. And I triumphed that way. Even though my sickle cell was there, she never once, we always just made a plan of action. People told me I couldn't play sports. I was best on the team. We always made a plan of action. And that's just like Nicole said, you may not be the biggest, the strongest, but if you work as hard, harder than anybody on the court, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna triumph. And that's what I did. That's what Nicole did every day. And I'm thankful for it, thankful for those things. And Bishop, he saw me grow up and saw Mom grow in God. And that's sort of the story that a lot of people don't hear about my mom. They think that she was a pastor after she taught.
No.
She was a pastor while she was teaching. She was everything that she was. An author, teacher, basketball coach, and a minister all at the same time. There wasn't different stages, they all came at once, and they were all within each other. But the most people, I think, don't see and hear about how it came to be, and it's her love of God. You knew she was a godly woman. You never had that doubt. But people always ask me, how'd you become a minister? And I struggle with that story because I was younger for it, but also there's still things I didn't understand about God and how she went through that process to get there and how she was called. And Bishop is amazing saw that process and was there for that beautiful development there. And he always used to step on my toes at church. And what I mean by stepping on toes, some people giggle and some people are kind of wondering what I mean by stepping on toes. When I go to church, and I know when Marcus goes to church, when any of us go to church, we want to get our toes stepped on. And what that means is that if I'm not feeling like pastor's pointing at me, there ain't no point being there. If I'm not hearing the sermon, if I'm not feeling God, then I'm not listening. I'm not getting my toes stepped on. Feeling like I got a spanking in church by God. And that's just the honest truth. I'll tell my friends to this day. It's like, I'll be like, I need to go to church. I need to get my toes stepped on. And I can feel it in the soul. I need my toes stepped on. And that's what I mean by that. I text Marcus or somebody, I'm like, I need my toes stepped on. When I called Bishop to come speak, I said, I need you to tell that process for Mom, because I don't know it good enough. But I was like, I miss hearing your voice and getting my toes stepped on. I miss Old God's Holy Tabernacle, being in Raleigh. But, Bishop, if you come speak.
We was having church one Sunday morning, and at that time, Victoria was not a minister, but she came to church that day. And at the end of the service, I asked her, I said, come back. She said, I will. And I said, okay. She said, I'm just being nosy today. I said, okay. So next Sunday came, she showed up, and as I observed her, I saw something that God wanted to use her. And I think it was on this third Sunday, I told her, I said, I think you've got a calling on your life. She said, Bishop, I'm not preaching. I'm not preaching. I'll sing, but I'm not preaching. And don't tell me I'm gonna be a preacher. I said, okay. We'll see. So, is it locked on for about 6 weeks, I guess, 2 months. And we was having testimony service. And everybody gets up and tells what God's done for them and everything. And she got up. Okay. She didn't get up all the time. So ever she was sitting, I think it was on the second row at the end of the pew. And as she was talking, she tried to step out into the aisle. And I kept watching her, and I was standing at the pulpit listening to her. And all at once, she came out the aisle. She was preaching. I think I got a witness, Reverend McDonald. She was preaching. And everybody just started laughing, which is a good laugh. You know, it wasn't bad, it was a good laugh, you know. I mean, you know, she didn't see herself in the aisle preaching. And we were laughing, you know. So at the end of the service and everything, I said, well, God's got a calling. I told you God had a calling on your life. Bishop, I'm not preaching. I'll sing, I'll do anything you want me to do, but I'm not preaching. So it went on several months there, and then one day she came in Sunday, she came in and she said, Bishop, I want to go ahead and answer my calling. And I said, Thank you, Jesus. So from that day on, the rules are you put people on probation, you set them down and for 2 years. And I watched her as she grew in grace. She was faithful to the people of the church. She became a Sunday school teacher. And I'm just watching her as she grew. And when the year came, I did not allow her to go on into the second year because she had grown enough that I could license her. And she was thrilled to death when I licensed her. And from that day on, if anybody knows Victoria, to me she was kind of bullheaded a little bit.
A little.
She didn't take no for an answer. And I always tell people in my church or whoever I am, I say, if I can help you any kind of way, just let me know. And I always told my church family that. And one night, it was after 12 o'clock, phone rang, Victoria. What's this about? I said, how are you? I'm doing okay, except I'm cold. I'm going, okay. She said, my heater went out. Mark the heater. I said, well, do you have oil? Yes, I got oil. This will kind of snap me out a little bit. Yes, I got oil. I just had it filled up. And I said, okay. Well, what's going on? I don't know. That's when I called you. Okay. And I said, all right. I keep my word, so I get up, and my wife and Marcus was small, and we went to Tina and her mother's house. I stayed there. I think it was till 2:30 in the morning, making sure that she had heat. The house was warm. What had happened was when you get oil and stuff, sometimes it condensation. And I got about 5 gallons of water out of that. And then I had to bleed the lines. But I stayed there. And then after I got it good and warm, I said, okay. She said, I'll bleed you. I said, what? She said, you always told people that you'd come in any time of night, any time of day. But that's who she was. And I don't care what it was, I mean, she would test you. And she would push you to the limit. And as I kept just watching her grow in the community and the church, and in the wintertime, I'd always come over and turn the electric heat on at the church. And then if we needed the furnace to turn on, we'd get that when we got to church. And she saw me doing that. She said, Bishop, you don't have to come over here no more. I can come down there. I can come down there and turn the heat on. That's all you have to do, just turn it on. I said, you don't have to do that. That's not for a woman's job. Well, I work in the church, don't I? I'm doing members, right? I said, yes. Well, how come I can't turn the heat on? I said, at the time, she was a minister. I said, Minister McDonald, if you want to come and turn the heat on, that's fine, okay? But what I want to say is that there's people in this life sometimes, we say we're going to do something for someone, and we don't follow through with it. But as I watched her grow spiritually, she became a spiritual giant in the church. And in the community, whoever really knew her. She was someone that if she told you that she loved you, she loved you. And if she would tell you that I don't agree with it, you might well get ready. She's not gonna agree with you. That's just who she was. But the most of all is that as we go through life, and I was watching her just growing, and it's hard to find someone in the ministry that, I'm just gonna say, grow like she did, you know, in a certain period of time. And I think Reverend Morgan vouched for me. She grew, and she grew, and I knew that she was doing the things the way God wanted her to do them. And when you do things the way God wants you to do them, He will bless you. And she was being blessed. And as we went down to Morehead City, all the men was gonna go on a big fishing trip. There was a bridge that you have to cross over, a big old bridge. She closed her eyes as she traveled over that bridge because she did not like heights. I'm not going back across that bridge. I don't care what anybody says, I'm not going. And first I know is she did not go back across that bridge. That's just who she was. She was a giant. And as I come to the end of this, you know what, sometimes we can say that her life might have been cut short, but let's not look at her life being cut short. Let's look at the banner that she carried for God. She carried it well. And I've seen a lot of people grow in grace, and not only that, but Peter here. They used to come to my house, her and her mother. And Victoria at the time was curious then about things. And she'd ask you sometimes, why did you do it that way? Well, what? Well, why this? Why that? You know. And it caught my attention because if you're talking all the time, you can't learn anything. But she was listening. And when you listen, you hear. But if you're talking, you don't hear that. And she took that in as she listened to me. At first, like I said, she was bullheaded. I said, now this is what you're gonna have to do. We'll see. I wasn't gonna push her now, you know, because you don't push people in church, you know, so. But anyway, and then there was times that she'd come back and say, Bishop, I want to thank you. You were right. But as I stand here and come to the end of this, her journey here in Jackson County, she's always going to be missed. There's times that I think about her. There's times that I look how, not at myself, but look what God had done for her. Because I can only teach her some things. I can only teach her some things, but God can teach her everything. And that's what I loved about her, because she would listen to you. And at the end of the church, if you said something that she didn't understand, she would ask you at the end of the church. And a lot of people don't do that. They're just going about their business, and then some people add to it. But I just want to say that her spiritual life with me and my family will always cherish her and her family, because I don't take no credit for what God has done. I only did what God would have me to do. And He did the rest. And I thank God for that, because she became a giant, a trooper. As the body, scripture says, as this old body would go back to the dust of the earth, but her spirit lives on. A lot of people don't understand that. Spiritual things are spiritual things, and common things are common things. So I want to say that I miss her, because I loved her. I loved her family. I loved her because what she did. As we always say, sometimes we take the horse by the bridle and lead him. She rode the horse. She rode the horse. All the way to the end. She rode that horse. But her legacy will live on. Thank you.
I want to add to that real quick. It was a beautiful thing, because then we're going to open up for everybody. So, you know, I read all that highfalutin like stuff that you can get at a college course, but Bishop knows that when we last met at an event to honor Victoria, I called her my spiritual mentor, because as an academic, you don't usually use those terms, because she helped me. I had never left, but to deepen my faith in a higher power. Some of you may not use the same terms. I want to acknowledge that, because that's also who Victoria was. She embraced people who were in the church, outside of the church, on the street, in the classroom, outside the classroom. That was just, and I'm adding to all this, because she was all those things. And she did not judge people. That was the other thing. And that's the thing that most people don't see when they think about the church. And I want to get us laughing, because she was hard-headed, because she was working against everything that she felt was a restriction, whether it was about racism, or about women, or about who your mom and daddy them were, or even situations where people wanted to keep all the power in a particular way. But her thing was, she was always, always, always for the underdog. And she could understand the complicated experience of living in a place like this. But she was always learning, always asking questions. And that was the frustration that people had, because she was the person who very often asked the question. Other people had wanted to ask but didn't have the courage to ask. So we want to hear from you. But I just wanted to add to that, because then you can begin to understand that this is the kind of person that I recognize in other people I know. That's why we say that this is about Victoria, but it's also about people that you wouldn't necessarily think of as leaders. They're not elected officials. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a big house. They don't necessarily even talk any kind of way in front of a group of people. But they're the people that make communities work. And thank God, whatever higher power you acknowledge, that the other thing was, we're taught not to get above our raising. Everybody know what I'm talking about? So, a lot of people didn't know she had 2 degrees. But she knew she had to write and publish those books. She knew she had to go to those 2 or 3 different meetings in the same day, because somebody needed to show up to take the information over to Liberty, over to such and such, over to this group. She was the person that we miss, because she went and shared all this information amongst all these people. So that's what I wanted to add, is just to give a little bit more reflection, so you can start thinking about coming up to the podium and telling us a story. Who wants to go?
Marie, do you know the order of her books? You know which one she wrote for?
The first book that's published is going to be the pictorial history of African Americans in Jackson County. That's the first published book, but technically the first book she wrote is Under the Light of Darkness. She wrote that over her 30-year career teaching. Her kids, like Nicole, that she taught, she actually wrote that book, and it got so thick because the kids wanted more.
Is that
They
the
want-
one in dialect?
Yes, it is the one, the green one, the green cover.
We're gonna have Amy come up,
But
she can talk about
and Amy's the one that did helped publish the first book, the official first book, and then the second, and then they come in the order. But I'll write these. Amy can tell you the order of them, because she helped actually publish them. Well, wait a minute, 3?
Yeah.
3. 3 out of 4, right?
It's 2006, I met Victoria. That was quite a long time ago, wasn't it? But the Jackson County Arts Council came to me and asked me if I would publish the book for Victoria. And I was so excited, because it's the very first book that was ever published on the African Americans of Jackson County. And in fact, of all of Western North Carolina, was the very first book. And what thrilled me was just knowing she was gonna sit next to me while I was typing everything in the computer. And that's what happened. We got to know each other very well. I would say, "What did you mean here?" And she would explain it, and I would type it. And she was such a stickler for getting everything right. She had to get all the pictures. She brought me the pictures. She explained it very distinctly, and then she would tell me, well, what are we gonna do about this? How are we gonna get this out? You know, she wanted to know all the particulars. And little by little, we brought this book together. And just knowing that she was sitting next to me while I was doing the book is one of the things that has stuck with me all these years. Just getting to know her and how she felt about things. And she surprised me so many times with how she felt about certain things. And that first book, when we finished it and had the book signing, in fact, we had it Well, to continue, when there was so many firsts with getting to know Victoria, she became a board member with Catch a Spirit of Appalachia, and getting her to each meeting that we had, because we had one every month, and I'd call her and I'd say, Victoria, we have a board meeting, and she said, you gonna come pick me up? And so immediately I said, of course, I'll be there to pick you up. So when we'd have our meeting, after a while she'd say, well, don't you think this is long enough? So Victoria was a wonderful board member. She stretched our board when we were working together. And then I'm a member of Holy Baptist Church, and we started a play. It was called what is it? After all these years now.
Which one?
What was the name of our play? The first one. The Trail of Light. The Trail of Light. We had 250 members in our community that was a play. And we did that for like 5 years, and then we wrote another play, The Trail of Light,
Mary, did you know?
Mary, Did You Know? Well, we wanted Victoria to sing for us. And I don't know, did anyone ever come to those plays that we had? Anyway, she sang Sweet Little Jesus Boy. And if you knew Victoria, how she sang, it was such a deep, resounding sound when she sang, and so full of feeling. And when she sang that song, it brought the house down. It did. It was just beautiful. And so she was involved with us in so many different ways. And during that time, we did those other 2 books, Just Over the Hill, and the original book. I don't know if there's a copy of here or not.
I can go get it.
But the original copy of Just Over the Hill.
Oh, here.
There it is.
Original copy.
There it is.
Right in the middle of it.
No, I've got it. I've got original copy for myself. That bit.
Yes.
That.
She did this picture. This is, she had another picture she wanted to use, and then she brought me this one, and I said, well, who is that? And she told me, and I said, that's the cover. This had to be the cover, because it just said it, and you just take a look at it and you want to read it. Anyway, this original book, it was such a wonderful session. If you look at the stories in here, you just look at the stories that she wrote. I mean, they were, I can't even do two full pages of stories listing of the stories that she wrote, and it all had to do with the people that she knew and the history that was involved here in Jackson County. It's a treasure. This book is a treasure. And then under the Under the Light, what is it, of
Under the light
Darkness?
of, under the light of darkness.
We fought over that name. I said, Under the Light of Darkness?
Yep.
I said, what do you mean by that? And so she had to explain it to me, and finally, I accepted it.
I remember her coming back from y'all talking about the title, and she would ask me about that. And there was probably, honestly, that book, Under the Light of Darkness, has 3 other titles in her computer that I have a copy of all of her books and research. It has 3 other titles.
Yeah, we did fight over that.
There was 3 other titles.
But if you ever knew anything about Jumping the Broom, that book will explain it all to you. Jumping the Broom. So I cannot tell you the history of Jackson County as said as in those 3 books. Well, if you haven't read them, I would recommend them highly, because they are such well written. And as a storyteller myself, and she was the storyteller, and the 2 of us together working on these books brought out the what you really want to hear from a story. You've got to begin a story and tell the story how everything starts. You've got to give them a person, place, thing in the very beginning, catch your attention, and then you tell a story that will touch your heart. And if you can make your audience laugh and make them cry, you have a story worth telling. And Victoria had a story worth telling.
I was gonna say, who wants to come next? This is open dialect. Whoever wants to come up.
Marcia Lee.
Come on out.
Many years ago, the first time I met Victoria, me and Leroy and Tommy Love were playing Little League. It was the first year they had integrated Little League. We were playing in Senior League. And Victoria had been coming down to see some of the games, but I'd never met her. And Leroy introduced me to her, and we chatted a little bit. Leroy said, "Don't ever make her mad." And I said, "What do you mean, don't ever make? She will whip your ass." So, anyway, that was the first time I met Victoria, and met her many times after that. Sweet lady. She never did punch me out or anything. But the young kids had a very good respect for her. They loved her, but they knew to be cautious.
They walked the line.
I just wanted to tell that story.
Tina, I just want to say 2 things, and if you excuse my seat, I'm going to say that. First of all, when I realized how amazing Victoria was, she was working on her master's at Western. She was working full-time at the telephone office. Her mother had dementia, and she was taking care of her, and she had a toddler.
Great.
And she handled it. I couldn't have handled one of those things without getting help. But my mom was the one that was helping her out with her mother and with Creighton. But to me, that was the most amazing thing, for her to be doing those things. And that is a lasting impression that she put on me. And number 2, before she published any books, she wrote a book of our family history. And it was bound, you know, those curly things, I don't know what you call them. Well, that's the way it was bound. But anyway, it takes us from the first time our family came to Jackson County. And we call that our first generation Jackson County, yes. And that makes me the fourth generation as we go through that. But, in our family reunions, and by the way, we had our 50th one this year, but in our family reunions, that's the Bible. Her book is the Bible. People, you don't know this, Tina, but people carry that book in their pack. Everything that she's done is in their thing they put over their shoulder, you know. And then if anybody gets a conversation going, they go to her book to get the answer. This year we had a Jeopardy game, and we based on our history, and that was the book that we got most of our questions from. And in Final Jeopardy, after everything was over, you know, those are the hardest questions.
Yeah, the hard ones.
Right. The team that lost, we did teams instead of individuals. The team that lost challenged that answer, and they brought me that Bible. And she said, look right here, this is what Victoria said. I said, read the next paragraph. And we had to go down to the next paragraph. And they said, oh, because the first paragraph, I think it was our great grandmother, we wanted to know that name.
Yep.
And she had said something like, it was hard to find out what that name was. And so that's what he had said. We couldn't find it.
Yeah,
that's
but
what.
then
Yeah, the next paragraph, I think it's Anna. Yeah, it says, but you know, she told how she found it, and she said her name is Anna. So she'll always live in the Casey family because, as someone said, we've got it down in writing. We are talking about trying to go forward with that book where she stopped. And I think you're gonna get that one redone just for us,
Yes,
too,
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're
I'm
working
getting
on
that. I'm gonna change it because I know what you're talking about, the binding, because I remember her putting those together before the reunion saying people needed these.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and then she'd redo them. Well, such and such says they need a copy.
Yeah.
They need a copy of the book. I said, yes, ma'am. I have a few copies that she's found
Okay.
still left.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna redo those.
All
But
right.
in general, you were actually the second African American, I think, to teach in Jackson County. You know that, right?
She was the first, right?
Yeah. But you were the second.
Well, I'll follow her any day.
I know, but I was like, and that's what this is about. It's not about
Yeah.
just mom. It's the impact and the people that were there afterwards and that were able to succeed. And you were the second. And people, and it's so funny. People were like, "Is Miss Casey your?" I was like, "That's my cousin." They're like, "Well, that's the only black teacher we know besides your mom." I said, "I know."
Several have asked me, are you the Miss Casey that taught at Smoky Mountain Elementary? I said, no, that was my first cousin. Well, my dad said you taught him at Smoky Mountain Elementary. I said, no.
Roll one. And I think Wanda, and you were the only assistant teacher, another teacher in the community. It was all in our family.
First social worker.
Then the first, the social, it's just those stories and those things and that continue to resonate in the community, those first that we do. Whether it be me, you, whoever it is, it's just amazing to see those things and how from one person doing something can open those doors to be.
But thank you, Tina, for realizing your mother's impact and bringing it to light for the entire county.
Yes, ma'am. I've tried, and it took me a while to Marie help me with that, so, you know, like that stay in your place, not to, you know, that bragging point. You feel like almost a brag point when it's not. It's what she did. It's not.
Yeah.
And I always, for a long time, was just always like, well, your mom did that. Yeah, she did it. But I didn't want to, I guess, boast. You know, you see people boast about something that's not worth talking about, or you're like, why are we even talking about this? Is it really something that's substantial? I didn't realize how much she impacted the community. I know how much she impacted me, because that's my hero. But I didn't truly come full circle till later in life, knowing what she impacted. and your sister even brought to my attention, she was the first black woman to work for the telephone office in Jackson County. I was like, what? I didn't even realize that. You know, I guess those first didn't really joke, but I'm redoing the book. I'm gonna have that done. That's what it's on
Bible, right?
I'm gonna redo the Bible, Casey Bible. You gotta have the Casey Bible.
You're right.
And but we will continue those legacies, and I'm thankful for Jackson County to allow me to do that and to allow the day to be known. And if you read in the proclamation as well, it has, which I have them up display, and I also posted it on Facebook and on social media. It's saying that the day is not just for Victoria Casey-McDonald, it's to acknowledge African Americans in Western North Carolina. It's for you to take that day. Yeah, we have Black History Month, it's one, and yet technically the day is in February, Black History Month, but it's to truly take that day to focus on the local Black history that built the community, and that's what also that day is for. Her day is for, it may be named after her, but it's for the community. Who wants to speak next? Miss Dahl.
I would love to speak.
My favorite art teacher.
Was I your only art teacher?
Maybe. No, technically, you were not. My mom was my first art teacher.
That's true. So, do you know that she has a painting in the school?
Huh? No.
So you know the ceiling tiles that are in the middle school?
Yes, ma'am.
When, so all of my 8th graders make a ceiling tile, so something they can kind of leave their mark that they were there. And several of the students have passed away now, and you know, but they were still there. You know, it's proof that they existed. And so I offered teachers, if any teacher wanted to paint a tile, and your mom said, I'd love to paint a tile. And the whole thing was, it was supposed to be about you, but hers was of Sean. She did it of Sean Blanton. He had been killed in service, and she said, I want to honor him, and I want people to know that he was here. And so now when I go under the hallway, not only do I see him, I know her hands are the ones that made it, so her artwork is still there too. I'll take a picture of it
You'll
and
have
send it to you.
send me that.
So I have a couple of things that pop into my head when I think of Victoria. I taught with her for many years, and first was, we had a year we did Secret Pals, and I put my name in for a Secret Pal, and all these people, you know, they, oh, I got a such and such, and I got a so-and-so, and I hadn't gotten anything, and I was like, well, okay, you know. But I had a hard year, just personally, just so much had happened to me that year. And I can't tell you the number of times your mama came in and sat down with me and just talked. And just talked and talked. And they had the reveal, you know, who's your secret pal? And she came to me and I didn't get you anything. She said, but I gave you my time. She said, I knew you needed my time. And she came day after day to my room and just sat and talked. But one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen in my entire life is of your mom. We had a student who was killed in a car accident, and a Cherokee student, and her funeral was in this little teeny tiny church, and there was not enough room for anyone to go into the church. And Victoria, when she taught the kids, if they misbehave, I don't know if any of you have ever seen NCIS where Gibbs smacks.
Oh yeah, people.
I mean, she would just go, stop that, pop somebody on the back of the head. I mean, they had every right to not embrace her, but they loved her. So here we are at this funeral, standing outside, and there's probably 40 people, and you can hear the inside, and you could hear singing, and you could feel the emotion, but you weren't part of it, but you were. And so Victoria comes up, and she's standing there, and all of a sudden, all of these grown students see her, and she's standing there, and I mean, I can picture it, and she has her arms like this, and she is hugging each of them, and they are in a circle around her because they came to her, because they loved her, and they knew she loved them. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. It's just such a big heart. And I really do miss her. But boy, would she be proud of you. I mean, she would be so proud of you, Tina.
I appreciate that.
So, I just love you bunches, sweetie.
I appreciate that more than you know.
Now see, Miss Dole, supposed to be laughing. I'm sorry. I said she smacked kids in the back of the head.
I'm glad you told us.
Smack in the back of the head was dangerous.
To get your attention.
That smack in the back of the head was dangerous. Like, no, seriously.
She threw
That-
basketballs at the students when my daughter was in her
Okay,
class.
you wanna stand up? You wanna stand up? You wanna stand up? Stand up so they can hear you.
They would go to sleep or not paying attention, passing notes or whatever, and all of a sudden,
Yep, that's mom.
and he said, I always kept my head low my dad. I just knew one day she was gonna get me. But she never did, and she's always been really special to my family. And
You were special.
especially to my granddaughter. She loved her, and she believed in her.
Yes, ma'am. She loved y'all. Oh man, she loved going to. I remember we'd always go down to the cafeteria. It was always 24. I gotta go see you. Yes, ma'am. We go. There we go. Across all of the school. We got to go see. We had to come see y'all. It was always, well, we gotta go such and such to visit. I never. Y'all were an extended family if anybody ever knew one. That's for sure. And everybody was her family. You know, if you knew mom, you knew that she took in everybody. Everybody was inside of our house. We had maybe 1,000 square foot house. I don't think Scott's crazy. Pastor, was that house even 1,000 square feet? Maybe 700. But I promise you, every weekend, we had at least the whole basketball team. That's 10 girls in and out. My brother's friends. Then whatever kid needed a home for the weekend or this or that. I can never tell you a time that there wasn't, at least on the weekends, 10 kids between the time of dawn to dusk. Somebody was running in and out of that house of 24/7. But I never, and it didn't matter. And it didn't matter about color. You know, people, and we're in small southern town, and there's these perceptions. Yes, we had racism. Yes, we have that, but I never knew. It didn't matter. Mom didn't care about your standing. She didn't care who you were. But if you were a kid and you needed help, best believe she was going to give it. And Nicole, when she was saying, if another teacher didn't like you, I remember mom specifically telling me, I never once, most people don't know that your child has a file that follows them from kindergarten to 12th grade. And your teacher's supposed to read that file to see how that child acted and their rapport with their teacher. Mom never read that file. She refused to read the file. She says, why am I going to judge a child by somebody else's?
Right.
I'm going to judge them on how they treat me. And I think the biggest lesson I ever learned from her was give respect to get it. And you treat people how you want to be treated. You ain't never going to have to worry about nothing. And that's the way I live my life. But that's the way she looked at all her kids. She would meet you, whether Ronnie didn't like him, and I did. Mama was going to make her own judgment on that person. And you don't, and she didn't care whether or not you liked him. But any child that somebody else may have a problem with, she never had a problem with them because she gave them the respect and didn't judge them before she met them. And I always, that's the lesson that I learned from her. And I really want to speak.
That's a great
I appreciate having a minute to say this, because what has happened over the years for me in life has been that studying for Black History Month was about people from the 20s and 30s, way on back, folks that are just written up in books. But I want to say how much I appreciate that you and Marie have done this program. And Marie is your mentor. You are really following somebody who has done a lot for African American people in history. And Marie does the African American artist project. And I think that you're looking at history sitting there. You're looking at history sitting right here. Because when I was talking to Victoria, she told me she took you like a little kid with her, you know, to go do her research. And back in those days, they didn't have computers like I can go on now and go into the computer. I have brain fog from COVID. I suffered all last year, and so I had to make a few notes real quick. But I want to say again, thank you for doing this, Marie and Tina.
Well, I also want to say that, like we were talking about, there is no hierarchy. You know, that's what's so beautiful about the way that Victoria spoke is that, well, let me just tell you what my mother said. She's a little bit more feisty about this. That we're not better than anybody, but nobody's better than us.
That's exactly right.
And I feel like I am learning as much as I'm giving in this process. But thank you for
important.
the
very
acknowledgement.
Important. Thank you so much for saying that, because I continue to learn. I'm 76 years old now, and I'm still learning. But I want to learn more about the people that surround me right now, like the bishop over there. I want to learn more about you, all of you. I grew up in Andrews, and that's 60 miles to the west. I left home when I was 14 because we didn't have any place to go to school after that. Went to Allen High School in Asheville for 4 years. So the only time that I could get around the community was in the summertime. Then I might come out here to Sylva for an event or something like that once during the summer. I didn't know Victoria. When I came home back in 1992 and met this lady, I had no idea because she was so humble. I had no idea who she was. That was a beautiful lady. I say right now that she was generous, she shared, and she was loving and caring. And I really appreciate that, because when you come back, sometimes you're not even accepted in your own hometown. But this lady showed me that she cared. And I remember her interviewing my dad for the radio program she was doing. And I thought that was just so special that she was doing a radio program, interviewing our people to make sure that they weren't forgotten. I'm so happy that she chose to be the secretary of One Dozen Who Cared. And one meeting in Franklin that we had, she knew I was writing a book when all God's children get together. And she said, and she had it in writing. She said, I've got the history of the Casey family. And she gave it to me. And she said, go ahead and put that in the book. And I was like, really? You know, because I had a hard time finding the history of our people, because it was difficult to get folks to reach out and give me information. So I'm grateful to your mother for sharing with me, and that allows her legacy to go on through even what I've written. So I really appreciate it. She helped bring down all these barriers. I hear it in what the people are saying here. And I'm very grateful for that kind of person with that kind of heart in our community. It behooves all of us to try to do what I see today and here today that lady did for all of us. One thing I will say is that I can't remember who said it, and I've tried to remember. I was writing notes, trying to make myself remember. But it was about, I might forget something she said to me. I might forget something she did in my presence, but I shall never forget the way the lady made me feel. So bless all of you, and I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, that's why I wanted to see you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
She interviewed Malcolm X, can you believe? And wrote an article about him. I wish you could tell us something.
I'll just, I'm sitting here listening to all of this information about her. And I met her when we were forming the NAACP.
Would you like to say your name so people know?
Selma Sparks.
And I never really got to know her. And listening to all of this, I'm so sorry. Because this would have been wonderful. And I'm almost in tears, just listening to it and realizing what I missed. Because we just didn't quite, I think because we were both maybe too much alike. This was a strong, from what I'm hearing, this is
You
a
would have
strong.
been great friends.
I don't
You
know.
would have been great friends.
This was a strong.
The only thing
woman.
that was off was timing.
I guess so. But I listened to this and I say, wow, this is, gee whiz, this was a sister. And I have to say before all of you, I am terribly sorry that I did not get to do it, but she wasn't there. And I was living in Franklin and I saw her at a couple of the meetings and then she wasn't.
Right.
And nobody talked about her. So I didn't know all of this until today. I only found out about the books a couple of weeks ago. And today I'm hearing and I'm saying, wow, Zoe, you really missed it. You really missed it.
But you got the book, didn't you?
Oh, I have, yes. Somebody wanted the book and gave it to me and said, I think you should have this. I'm gonna give this to you. And I'm so grateful that I'm gonna find the others too. Because what I'm hearing now is I can say, I'm very proud of her. This was a woman that I could say, truly, this was a sister. Proud of you, and I know she's proud of you.
I know.
Definitely. Oh yes, indeed. Yes.
If I'm half the woman that she would ever be, then I'm doing something.
You will be.
Yes, ma'am.
You will be more than half.
Yes, ma'am.
Very proud of you.
I did not say that properly. The Affrilachian Artist Project. I want to say it right.
Oh, one thing I'll
Say
say,
it, please.
everybody in here, I don't think we have a piece of paper, but we want your contact information.
Get a piece of paper.
And my
We
name
will-
is Ann Miller Woodford. She says, say your name. Ann Miller Woodford is my name.
Thank you. Anybody else while I take over the, okay, just a story because we're talking these big pronouncements. Victoria could not cook. But when we talk about hospitality, let me tell you something. I wasn't around with all the kids that were in and out of her house, the various places she lived, but there was a period after I had no longer been teaching at Western when I was still coming up here almost every week and staying for days at a time, starting the Affrilachian Artist Project. And I didn't have to pay for a hotel because I came to her house, and I can't remember the address, somebody else have to tell me some other time. Not off of Iron Mountain Road or something, it was like you had to turn by the cemetery to get there.
Daddy place?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so thing was that the house was really small, so I was not gonna take her bed. So I got to sleep in the recliner.
Oh, Lord.
And what was so cool about it was, talk about building trust. I got to the point where I could call her and I would not know when I was gonna, back when I was younger. Didn't know when I was gonna be showing up. I might show up at midnight or whatever, and I was like, I didn't want to stop doing what I was doing, but I wanted to have a place to stay because I wanted to extend the time. And she would just leave the door open. So I would just come in, set up the recliner, make sure I told her I was in the house, because I didn't know if she's packing or not.
That one came with me. That was the thing that came with me.
But this is the thing. I would wake up, and this is where I'm gonna smile and not cry. But she would start the day, like I said, she couldn't cook, but she would make coffee, and she taught me. She put a little bit of nutmeg in the grounds to drink coffee, and she'd be singing.
Oh, yes.
She would sing, and I would like, I need to pay this woman. because, and I would take her out and we would do different, whatever, but it was like the experience that took me back to my big mama. And that love and that caring. And then we would have almost like this routine where we talk about what was on the news or talk about what was going on in town, because she would kind of catch me up on stuff before I started hitting the ground and running and stuff like that. And then we would watch In the Heat of the Night and Matlock. I tell you, to this day, we would have situations where we were supposed to be going someplace, but we would have to stay until the end of the episode. And that's why I understood that she also had no concept of time, because she was always doing whatever she was living in the moment. And then, so the time, I was like, oh yeah, I'll be there, whatever time it takes to get there. But it was like this wonderful experience, because I had to get back to that moment of these special things where I felt like her attention was on me, my attention was on her. And I could imagine how that would be with a younger person, because I had older people like that in my life, because I always treasured older people. That's why I always tell people, you know, I don't have a problem saying I want to live to be 100 if I can make it. Victoria didn't make it to that year, but her young spirit is planted in all of us. So every time I watch Matlock or I get ready to make my coffee, I'll sprinkle a little bit of nutmeg. And I'll think about her.
Yep, yes, ma'am. I got it. I was gonna send it around.
Where are you teaching?
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Miss Casey over there, you want to tell any childhood stories?
It would be about her and her sisters.
Well, go right ahead.
We were at Jackson
Can you
Elementary.
stand, or is it comfortable? If you don't have to, sit down. Stay still.
Okay.
Her voice carried.
Okay, yeah, project.
When we were at Jackson, you know, which is now the Board of Education, but we were at Jackson, segregated schools. I was elementary, like first, second, third grade, and they were in high school, Victoria and her sisters. And so, I don't know, I think it was Lorinda and Victoria that started making us paper dolls.
Yes.
And they made them out of cardboard boxes, so they were brown.
Right.
And
And I've got one of those.
Have you? I've got a whole set.
I was
that
gonna say,
Victoria did for
Okay,
me
curator.
before she died.
Curator moment, go ahead.
And she would, you know, color the hair and make little dresses for them, and they would be about 3 feet. Yes, and they would bring them to school and give them to me and my sister. So all the other girls wanted them too. And they would make them for the girls. So I went down to Tina's store one time, and she had a box of paper dolls. And mine are gone. I don't know where mine are, but I said to Tina, I'll buy those from you. And I can't remember where I bought them or she gave them to me. I don't remember. But anyway, it's a girl and a boy. And all the little clothes go with them. I will keep those forever.
You know what I heard on one of those recorded stories is that they actually even they made annuals for them. They would make an actual annual, so you'd have like the Miss whatever, the senior superlative. So it was like this whole thing that gives you a whole different way of thinking about how people in the mountains made their own fun.
Well, you know, I mean, you had the whole Casey family, and
everybody was
on this
talented.
road, Laurent, that's my cousin, if everybody doesn't know, and her aunt, I can remember always, if I was getting my hair done, or if they were coming, I would always get, when I was a kid, when we'd go to Asheville, and Aunt Geraldine had to do my hair. Like she had to, like it was set in stone. But all the Caseys were my aunts and uncles, because there was 9 brothers and sisters. They all were very prevalent in the community and did so much for the community and the little things that they did. I mean, just like Lorinda was always, she didn't accept it, but she got Western. She did night classes. She worked for Western, and she did night classes for electronics. Back then, it's kind of a big deal, but to do that, to have that degree, to being in that field, building robots and doing those things. Mom Lorinda did, and I remember her showing me how to wire. She had it was a teaching set for an electrician to show how the power goes from one to another and how you connect the wires to turn on a light bulb and how the switch works. And to configure it. And I remember that kid because she wouldn't, Mom Lorinda, if you ever met her, tomboy to the max, jeans, and she was in there just building. And oh yeah, absolutely. Building things. When she would watch me, I don't know why your mama trusted me with you. I ain't got no kids. I don't know why she trusted me. My breakfast.
That sounds like her.
And my breakfast was biscuits. She would get, no, Aunt Lorinda didn't cook. Can't cook. My mom can cook actually, or she just didn't like to cook anymore.
Okay.
But Aunt
I'm not gonna take
Lorinda,
that
she
away
didn't
from
cook. But she would take the Pillsbury
'Cause I
canned
can't cook.
biscuits, pop them open, and then it was, I don't know if you've ever had it, butter and syrup mixed together.
Oh yeah.
That was my breakfast. She was like, "It's as good as you getting. You need some toast with it. That's more carbs, Aunt Lorinda." But that was and I would stay with Aunt Lorinda and get to spend time with Aunt Lorinda, and she taught me the basics of being an electrician.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I can remember the basics of anything right now. If you told me, "Well, Tina, this is wired," and I love to take apart things, but because of Aunt Lorinda started that spark, and I can do that. I know the basics of hair, not because of my mama, because she was as tomboy as I am. I may look decent right now, like I'm a tomboy, but I am. Aunt Geraldine's the only reason that I knew anything about hair was because she helped me. She did my hair and showed me like little things. Mom did my hair, of course. Told me to hold my head still. Best believe I was not tender-headed. Nah, you can't be a Casey and be tender-headed, that's for sure. But I learned different things from all of my aunts and uncles, even though they were Mom had me when she was 45. So,
Wow.
So that's a big age gap for most kids that you're going up. Most of like all my friends' parents, and I'm like, "How old's your mom?" That's cute. I actually learned it this way, and I'm thankful that I had the older generation to raise me, because I have what I tell people. I'm very much an old soul in a new body. I'd not rather have those morals than a traditional millennium's parents' morals. I'm not saying there's anything against what, but
their life skills.
There's things that I learned from the generations that are here right now that I am very blessed to have learned from Pastor. From learning those things that most people I would have never have learned if my mother wasn't the age she had me when she had me. To learn from Mary Sue, to learn, and Wanda, to all these people that were in a very much a really huge generation gap. But because of when my mom had me, and yes, I was a planned surprise. I wasn't just a surprise. I was a planned surprise. I was a planned surprise. Yeah. From those generations, I learned so many things, and that's what I was telling people about while we're here, is to celebrate the people that are here. It's not just to celebrate Mom, it's to celebrate everybody that has contributed to the community that we see now, to the person that I am, that Marcus is. He's all quiet back there, but Marcus can recite the Bible front and back. He knows, we tell him a scripture, he knows it, and then athlete of his own sorts, but also knows the history. very, very well, better than me. I just happened to pick up my mom who she was, so inherently it falls on me to hold it, and I'm just thankful that I am able to do so because of you guys, and that we're able to hold that legacy and continue to keep it going. And I appreciate you guys coming out today, and if everybody would put their name and their email so that we can send out when we're doing different things, the legacy that continues. There's another book that I know I still need to publish that I need to get around to publishing. There's technically the one right when she passed that she was about to publish, which is Living in the Shadow of Slavery, which I got published, but there's still one more that was just in draft. Yeah, it's just the manuscript that I have to go through now and figure out how to edit and move through. So
thank you for this. I hope it'll help you as an editor. I will be very pleased to have
I will be absolutely.
Seriously, this I did, living this I did for a number of years. And you were lucky having your mother that age. You know, my mother was young when I was born. My children were young. And the things that you could learn, you learned from a mother of that age. I had to wait until I grew till I was almost this age, 91, to learn them.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
I was very blessed. You know, I learned so many life lessons that I wouldn't have learned if my mother would have been of even my age of 35 when I had Victor. Like, I'm thankful that I'm at a little bit of an older age, though, that he actually will be taught and brought up the way my mom, in a newer fashion, of course. Nobody's gonna be the exact same way, but I'm thankful that I have those morals and the way that I was brought up to pass on to Victor. And if you don't know, Victor is named Victor because of my mom. If it would have been a girl, he would have been Victoria. Mom had a twin brother named Victor, and so when I found out he was going to be a boy, we just did Victor as in honor of my mom, and of the twins. And then his middle name is Lee, which is father's middle name. So his name has history, just like my name. Mom actually named after both my grandmothers. I'm named after Faustine, which is the first name of my grandmother on my father's side, and Clarinda is the middle name of my grandmother on Casey's side. So, so my name's about 120 years old. So my mom was very intentional with everything that she did with me, and I hope that does continue to carry through to Victor. And I am thankful, like I said, for this opportunity and you guys to come today.
Thank you for doing this.
We're gonna wrestle together with the remaining people a photograph, but what I'm gonna do is, in respect for people not having to stand, is we're gonna get around to here. I've got a photographer. We'll just put him in later. But we're gonna get, if we can, little Victor, mom and dad on this couch in the front.
Or let me go grab him. He is playing somewhere.
Thank you so much for coming. We're gonna let them stay right here, and then we're gonna, so people don't have to move. And I just want to let you know that, oh, now I'm forgetting my friend's name. That the lady that took a little spill, Marsha's doing very well. Not to be concerned about Marsha. As a matter of fact, she laughed about the fact that she thought that she was getting ready to get up and say something, and Victoria popped her in the back. All right, I want everybody in this picture. This is historic. You too, everybody out in the hall. Everybody, so we're gonna have a couple of people, if you, can we get you on, no, you can actually just get on the seat here. We're gonna have you just sit right here, you don't have to move. Just sit right here. And Liz, who is going to be an important part of this, is here. Come on to the front, Liz. She is working on the archives that are also collecting the information about Victoria. So if any of you, even as we've shared today, you don't have to take these things out of your collection. We want to be able to photograph any letters, any artwork, anything that you have. I just want to say this one more time. Come on up, because we're going to, everybody in the hall, you've got plenty of chairs here. Y'all can grab a seat right here. Actually, you can sit together. No. Come here. You come on. And we'll, okay, family, okay, that's good. Actually, we won't sit right here.
Well, I wish I know.
Anybody? Reverend, come sit next to your son right here. Everybody. Okay. And I'm gonna get him. All right. And just scoot over just a little bit. Scoot over to fill that hole. Yeah, just y'all can get telling all my secrets. Are you telling all my secrets, son? All right. Again, as you look through your drawers and do your spring cleaning, nothing has to leave your house. All you have to do, make sure, did everybody sign in to the sheet that we have for city lights? We'll just take a photograph so that we can see letters, photographs, anything that you may have, so that we can put together an archive, all right? So,
where are you taking the?
he's gonna stand up here and do something. All right, get your phone. We're gonna do what we can.
I know.
All right.
Yeah.
Good, okay. I was just rolling with what I had. All right.
Okay.
Do you have all the faces? Does somebody in the back? I see.
Cut yours out.
Oh, I'm not important. I'm just chilling. But there's a lady in the back. There's a lady in the back I know. Do you need to stand? Lady in the back?
Is that better?
Do you got her? Okay. Everybody say grits. Thank you. All right, do we have any closing statements or anything that anybody would like to make? Miss Wanda, would you like to close us out in prayer in the spirit of tradition in our families and our community?
Let's stand right here.
You can stand wherever you'd like.
Come on.
You can do it whatever way you want.
Short and sweet.
You short and sweet.
Hold on.
You struck my lightning. Let me go. Over here. Because y'all can stay over there.
Take your chances.
I love you, Aunt.
I love you too. Dear Lord, we come before you at this hour, thanking and praising you for all that has been said and done, the remembrances that we have encountered, and those that was not shared. We also enjoyed the fellowship that we have here today. We ask that you bless all that's here, that they can return home safely. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Well, I guess I wouldn't got hit by